Another hand review. This one was in. This was from about a month ago. It was against a friend of mine in a. I think it was 5-10-20. So I think again, typical caveat is this won't let me. Snowy won't let me create 3 blinds. So this was in a. I think 5-10-20, but I can't quite remember. Again, it doesn't really matter. I have a general sense of the sizing at each stage, which is all that really matters. Relative. I open. This is me. Early-ish position, and Aaron, my friend, calls in the what I believe was straddle. Here it's the big blind, but again, you get the idea. We get 10-8-5 rainbow. He checks to me. Not much to say there. So here, how does Snowy handle this position? So Snowy does choose to check, but if it's going to bet here, it would prefer a smaller sizing. So 0.25, it starts betting. But it prefers, if you're going to use a larger like pot size bet here to balance, to check. So basically either check or bet small is what Snowy's saying, is the long story short, which is not surprising. This isn't, particularly profound analysis that you can check ace king here. Turn is an ace of hearts, so we get a rainbow ace. Aaron once again checks, and we get, let's pull up our spot. Snowy wants to bet. I bet about 2/3 pot here. It looks like this is 6.6 EV, so yeah, this is about the sizing that Snowy wants. I don't think Snowy actually uses this size ever for what it's worth. I think it simplifies it to 0.25, 0.5, 1 and 2 pots. So even though this is like the most optimal sizing it can have on here, it never actually uses it. It is simplified in a way. Not that it really matters, just for what it's worth on how this AI works. But yeah, we bet here. Makes a lot of sense, obviously. We have a very strong hand. And Aaron check raises to 145. So let's start with this. We don't know the hand strength of Aaron's hand, obviously, because we don't know what he had. But let's do a little rundown here of how Snowy approaches this spot. So again, Snowy has called this player has called the big blind. So its raises include all 3 sets that aren't aces, obviously. I don't think it can have aces here. The most likely hand is a hand like ace-jack or ace-queen. It is check-raising here some. It can also have ace-king when it called pre, and then a whole bunch of suited aces. There's a couple of 10s, although not super likely. So 2 combinations of like king 10 suited, which the reason I'm listing this is because it'll become relevant in a second. Some queen 10 suited, some jack 10 suited. So it does use some 10s for balance. And then a bunch of draws, so no pair draws. So for example, all of these are just what we call like high equity bluffs, meaning they're air right now, but you have a lot of outs, obviously. So 6-7 is the obvious one, king queen, queen jack. Yeah, all the things you would expect, basically. So this isn't a, there's nothing super profound here. I would just say it's interesting that Snowy would include a hand like, say, ace-7 of diamonds. And then it calls similarly with those hands some of the time. It has like pocket kings, pocket queens, pocket jacks, which is interesting. And it also includes some combos of king 10 suited as well, stuff like that. So as usual, it does different things with different combos. Sometimes it raises, sometimes it calls, just to be super hard to play against. Okay, so Aaron makes it 145. This might have been 50 and 150, whatever. You get the point. It's about this sizing. This is where the hand, I think it's interesting because I called here. Snowy actually wants to raise, which is interesting. So first of all, the EV is very, very similar, 4.9, 4.8. I suspect that most players in my spot here would not think about raising, but it's kind of a cool spot. So this is what's so strange about this, and it just goes to show you how hard poker can be. Snowy considers this exactly the middle of our range, which is typically when we want to be calling, like it seems funny to raise something that is the exact middle. But as usual, it's never quite as simple as it appears. So if we look at, actually the strategy advisor might be interesting here. Best hand is showed at 75% of the time. Probably everyone will fold. Yeah, actually, I don't really care about that, to be honest. Let's look at this. So it wants to raise with the two pairs, which makes sense. I'm not shocked by that. I am a little surprised that it includes ace king and ace queen. I think the reason it approaches it this way is, yeah, for example, like ace king suited raise 100% of the time, ace queen 100% of the time, ace jack 100%, and then it has these like a funny little percentage like ace 7. This is not surprising. And then I guess it's using a hand like ace 9 or ace 7 sort of almost like as a bluff, actually. I'm not sure it's quite a bluff, but it's just a weird spot. That's why I found this hand really interesting. And then it's also occasionally calling with some hands. Queen jack of heart or queen jack suited calls, and it's folding a bunch of aces. It's folding a bunch of, you know, like pocket jacks makes sense, pocket queens makes sense. A lot of the hands that you would expect to fold. 6-5 suited, stuff like that. Okay, so however, its raise range is 0.28 pot. So I find this really interesting. It's about 5 EV to make a very small raise here, but if you were to do it for a huge sizing, it's negative EV. So it goes from, if you were to 2x pot, which is not surprising, this is like negative $24 of EV. This is positive $50. So it just goes to show you that bloating a pot where you do not have the nuts and you're not bluffing with like 2x pot, I mean, again, not surprising, but this is really, really bad. One pot is 4.81 EV. So basically the sizing super matters. And in this case, a really small sizing is what Snowy wants to go with. So it's basically clicking back here and saying to this player, like, you have to prove to me that you have enough made hands here. Otherwise, you're going to have to pay for some of these bluffs that you basically are trying to check raise turn with. Hands like 6-7, jack 9, maybe like 6-5 suited, stuff like that. Hands that have some equity and are trying to get me to fold like some air. Okay, so I call here, which again is not what Snowy does, but I don't think is horrible. We get a 10 of diamonds on the river. Aaron checks here, which is a cool play. Snowy's checking 73% of its range here. It's betting pot with 10s, 8s, 5s, king 10. And then its bluffs are like 6-7. But there's not that many bluffs left, to be honest. I think a human would have a lot more bluffs here. So 6-7 is the obvious one. Jack 9 is the obvious one. I don't think Snowy can have Jack 9 here because it's like either super nitty pre and might find a fold. I don't think. I might be wrong about that. But it just doesn't have Jack 9 in this spot for whatever reason. It's also checking a lot of its ace bluffs that it check raise turn with. I shouldn't say bluffs. I mean, as usual, it's Snowy, so it has these weird little like sort of mergy spots where it's not 100% clear whether it's betting for value or bluffing. Okay, anyway, Aaron checks. This is about the range I would expect. I'm not particularly surprised by this. I decide to bet. I decide to bet like 1/5 pot. I think it was like 100 into 500, something like that. But again, the proportionate bets are correct. Snowy wants to check here, although it's super close. It's actually more likely to bet 2x pot, which is interesting. I don't think we have a lot of 10s, so I don't totally understand that. But I bet 0.2 here. As you can see, it's all, I mean, the sizing doesn't make a huge difference in this spot. I just like it because if Aaron has a hand like ace-5 or ace-8, which I thought was a lot of his check raise on the turn range, I think he probably is calling river just in case he's trying to protect against a hand like Jack Queen from getting, like the greatest bluff of all time, or Jack Nine suited or something like that I check flop with 6-7. So when he check raises his turn and the river's 10 and these two pair combos get counterfeited, I really, really like having a bet here with ace king for that reason. Okay, so he checks. I bet, like I said, 1/5 pot, and here's the hand strength. So now Snowy considers this a very strong hand. So it's strange to me that it checks, but I guess it just thinks that it's not getting called by enough hands. That's often the case when you see a very strong hand strength, but also a check being slightly better than a bet. It often is the fact that your opponent doesn't have enough hands that are calling that are worse. Aaron double check raises me to quite a friend, by the way. Just kidding, buddy. Makes it 500 on the river. Cool play, double check raise. And let's see what. Oh shit! Let me go back. Sorry, I just want to check this real quick. This is now back to Aaron. How Snowy approaches this spot. So it's raising. Basically, any combo that it got here with a 10, it's check raising river, and it's using 6-7 as bluffs. The probability of it being 6-7 is pretty likely at this point because there's not as many 10 combos, especially if Aaron can have 6-7 offsuit. But it's still not. There's just not that many bluffs. I think the difference here between Aaron and the way Snowy approaches this, like I said, is Aaron can have Jack 9 for sure. My logic here was I didn't think he was likely to check a bluff on the river because after you check raise turn and the river, the river bricks, I think it's just the line of leading makes a lot more sense. Or I shouldn't say sense. It's just what you're more likely to do when you have a bluff. So, and I thought even though I definitely have a strong hand here, I thought I know that in my range, I'm going to have some sets. I'm going to have some tens. I'm going to have some ace 10. I'm going to have some two pair. I'm going to have, a bunch of hands that protect me from just getting bluffed mercilessly here. It's also a super random line, so I'm not super worried about being balanced. I just kind of want to get it correct. And I lean towards the fold, which Snowy agrees with, although it's really close. I mean, calling is just barely negative EV. And it's a little hard to figure out how Snowy would approach this spot because, like I said, it would have raised turn. So it only really thinks it can have ace 10 here. So it's sort of unhelpful, but a really close spot. So, I mean, I think this goes to show you, like, this is a good bluffing spot by Aaron because I'm sort of indifferent whether I should call or fold. Obviously, raising is not good. I decided to fold. I still don't know what he had, but I thought it was a cool hand, so I wanted to review it. So overall, a good one. And I think my big takeaway here, honestly, is this spot. It's interesting that Snowy's willing to fold this on the river, but on the turn, because there's still a lot of bluff combos that are trying to realize equity while bluffing, Snowy wants to sort of click this back. So I think this is a cool play, something to keep in mind of, especially because, like, presumably we have a set of aces and Aaron doesn't in this spot in terms of, like, the absolute top of our range. So it's a cool play. I think incorporating this into my game in these little, like, check raise spots where I have even one pair, but 3-betting it for small sizing, I'm going to start doing this for sure. So I really like this. I think this is my big takeaway from this hand. And I hope you enjoyed it. Have a good one.